138 MMA, here to bring you another Week 8 Dana White Contender Series matchup. This matchup, we have Ikram Aliskerov versus Mario Sousa. For Sousa, he's 14-2, and for Aliskerov, we have 12-1. Something to note before we go any further is Sousa has actually been on the Contender Series twice before, 1 win, 1 loss. So he's had experience here. This is his third shot. I believe Jamie Pickett was the only other person to be on 3 times. I could be wrong about that, but as far as I can remember, Jamie Pickett was the only other person to be on 3 times, and he did get the win and get the contract. So there's that. But this fight here, so we have a few interesting wrinkles in this one. With this being Sousa's third time, he probably feels a lot of pressure to get this one done, but he has some tools to do so. So we're going to start with him here. He does have really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he's active off his back. So you see him working for things, but sometimes that does leave him content to be on his back and lose minutes, because often if you're not getting the submission, you're losing when you're on your back. Even if you are looking for stuff, you're usually losing in the eyes of the judges. So there's that. Plus, you're usually eating shots most of that time. But anyway, so off his back, he is pretty active. He does have good jiu-jitsu, so he could lock up a submission here and get the win that way. That is a path to victory for him. Not the most likely unless he can get Aliskerov pretty tired early on. But and that's possible for a guy like Sousa. He does have a really solid gas tank. We've seen it in both of his Dana White's Contender Series fights. Wow, that didn't come out. His first one in particular, if I remember correct. So he did make it all the way to a decision, and I believe he was the underdog in that fight. I can't remember for sure, but it was close. But he made it all the way to the decision, and the other guy was smoked. But Sousa looked like he could keep going, and in the third round, it really showed, and I think that was what got him the nod. But anyway, so good gas tank. That jiu-jitsu could pay off in the later rounds, potentially. He does have a 3-inch height advantage, so that helps. But something that doesn't really bode well for him. So he does overcommit on his strikes. Not every strike, but a lot of times when he's really getting going, trying to land some shots. He does have good rangy strikes because he is fairly tall. But when he throws, sometimes he'll overcommit and get himself off balance, and then it'll result in him getting taken down. And he does have fairly porous takedown defense. It's not good. It's not good. And I think a lot of that is because his jiu-jitsu is pretty solid. He doesn't mind getting taken down typically. The problem is when you get to this level, often when you get taken down, it's really hard to win off your back at the UFC level. So for Sousa, if he wants to win off his back, yes, guys can do it. Like you got your Polk Riggs, you got your Ryan Halls, like guys that can win off their back. That's true, there are some, but it's the minority. So it's hard to win off your back at the UFC level, and at the Contender Series level, I would say a very similar thing. So he does have weak takedown defense, like I said, probably because he doesn't usually mind being taken down, and he does overcommit on his strikes, probably because he's not worried about being taken down. However, he does have weak takedowns in that of himself. So when he goes for takedowns, he often ends up on the bottom because when he fails to get that takedown, he'll end up just pulling the other guy on top of him because he wants to get the fight to the ground. At least that's what I saw on the regional scene for him. It does happen. I don't mind it in most fights for him particularly because, like I said, he's active off his back. He was putting elbows to people, working for submissions. Like I would argue that he won a round off of his back in his first Dana White Contender Series fight, and not because of the submissions, but he was landing some sick elbows and hammer fists that actually sounded like they had some serious pop to him from his back. So Sousa has interesting tools here, but he's got a really tough matchup. So for this matchup, he's fighting a guy who, yeah, he's got decent striking, but grappling, he's a bit of a step up from that. Now, he is good. He doesn't have like A+ tier grappling. He's not like an Islam Makhachev, for example, somebody that you go, oh yeah, that guy can grapple with the best of them. He's really good. He's not that like top tier yet, but he's really, really good. And I think in this matchup, it will be enough to control where the fight takes place without too much trouble, especially on a guy that doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. But so Aliskerov, he does have that solid grappling base and decent striking. It's not bad. And he does show the ability to adjust mid-fight. So if he sees that Sousa is doing well off his back, I wouldn't be surprised if Aliskerov does midway through the fight, say end of the first, end of the second round, say, you know what? I'm going to strike with him now and see if I can beat him there. Because, like I said, he's shown that in his other fights where he'll be using one tactic to go through the fight and it's not working out the way he thinks it will. And then he'll get to his corner next thing you know. And this is probably more a credit to his corner than him, but also a credit to him for the simple fact that he is able to take that advice and then run with it. So, but he does adjust. He'll come back out using a different game plan. Couple of negatives. He was knocked out very, very, very bad in that only loss, which I believe it was to Khamzat Chimaev. So it's not really, I mean, the opponent isn't the reason that it's bad, but man, he was gone. Like he was in another world for a moment there. So that's rough. You don't I mean, everybody can get a couple of those before they start, having to worry too much. I wouldn't be super worried, but with a guy that can throw pretty decent shots, it could happen. So I just wanted to make a note of it. Something that really I thought was weird. Two fights actually. So he had one on the regional scene kind of earlier on, so I don't put as much weight into this, but against Chad Honeycomb or something like that. Fights out of South Africa. Anyway, I had a matchup against him that, man, he really struggled in that one. He ended up getting the win, but it was close. It was real close. And I wouldn't say that, I haven't heard a whole lot about Chad Honeycomb since, so I don't know what he's doing now, but it was a close fight there. And then in his Eagle FC fight against, was it Brunel or something like that? Brunel had some serious moments in that fight. So he's not the level of a fighter that can control the fight from start to finish, no matter what. He's not one of those guys. He's not dictating everything in the fight, which we do have a few guys like that in the UFC. I mentioned Islam Makhachev for one. The guys that, you get them coming in and they decide, okay, we're grappling now and I'm going to control this fight from start to finish. He doesn't quite have that level of grappling, but he does have a bit better striking than some of those guys. So I'll give him that, I guess. But he did struggle in that Eagle FC fight at times. He still clearly won the fight, struggled at times. So I do think he gets the win here. I am going to pick Ikram in this fight. I don't think it's as far as the odds show. I believe he's a massive favorite right now. If I saw that correctly, he's like -4 something, 475 or something like that. I don't think they're that far off. I think this is if I were to line the fight, I would put Aliskerov probably -195, -200, something like that. I do think he should win, but man, Sousa's good off his back. So, you take the guy down and you end up in, making one mistake. Next thing you know, busts you open with an elbow or catches up an arm or probably not a guillotine. No, realistically, guillotines just don't work very often. So I don't know. When people are always, you hear the commentators, especially on the regional scene, oh, he's got a guillotine, he better get his head out. They just don't work that often. You got to, especially for men, because, and I know that sounds, oh, okay, sure. But for men, typically men have bigger forearms. And a bigger forearm is harder to fit under a chin, especially because men also typically have thicker necks. And thicker necks and a bigger forearm gives you less space to fit that under there and get that guillotine. So, with that said, it's easier to pop the head out. Guillotines just don't, there's a certain build for a guillotine. So, when you hear that on the regional scene and he better get his head out, a lot of times you just I just brush it off. Sometimes it happens, but, so anyway, little tangent there. But I think Sousa has a shot here. Aliskerov is a better pick. That's who I'm taking. Let me know if you've got someone else. If you've got Sousa, let me know if you've got Sousa. Or, hey, who knows? The referee might step in. No, I'm just kidding. But if you've got Sousa, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you think. But yeah, I've got Aliskerov here. If you think that I'm correct in that, let me know what you think happens. Let me think, if you think he's going to strike him and get the KO, or if he's going to take him down and use some ground and pound or a submission hold. So whatever you think, I'd love to hear it. I love responding to your comments. So we'll see you in the next one.